Welcome back. All right, so I've ranked the number 1 draft picks from 2005 till 2020. The number 2 draft picks. So what's next? Right, number 56. No, we're going to do number 3. 56, I think, could be a little bit, well, I don't even know who was taken 56th overall. Anyways, that being said, we're going to talk about the number 3 draft picks. And it gets tough here. Like, there are some arguments to be made for who is where. So, by all means, you want to make the arguments, you make that's kind of what this is about. But yeah, this side especially, I was kind of like, okay, well, I guess. At number 16, so the lowest ranked on the list, I am going with, from Montreal's draft picks in 2012. What is it with 2012? Yeah, Alex Galchenyuk, 2012 draft pick. At this point, he's an unrestricted free agent. I would not be entirely surprised if he's done at the National Hockey League level. He might get a tryout. Maybe he gets a regular job somewhere. But yeah, Galchenyuk, outside of a couple of pretty strong, promising seasons, it's been not great when it comes to Galchenyuk. So 16th overall goes to Galchenyuk. At 15th, and I'm kind of surprised to see him already, but outside of all the potential he had 2 years ago, and he looked really good in 2020, but at this point, now he's with Montreal, Kirby Dach, who was drafted 3rd overall in 2019. And I'm as surprised as anybody that now he's Montreal property, because I really thought Dach was part of the future in Chicago. But he has definitely suffered some regression at the NHL level. I did not have a good season with Chicago. Very few have, as I mentioned in the Chicago season preview video. But yeah, Dach ends up 15th. Number 14. And again, this is the recency thing that I've been talking about. From 2018... Jesper Kyniemi. Kyniemi, of course, now he's in Carolina. So the interesting thing is Galchenyuk, not in Montreal. Kyniemi, not in Montreal. Dach's in between. He's in Montreal. Kyniemi, of course, signs the offer sheet from Carolina. He is very likely going to, develop into what Carolina envisions him as. And if I was doing this, say, 2 or 3 years from now, odds are he's much higher, I would think. But based on what he's accomplished so far, he ends up 14th. And again, from the 2018 draft. Number 13. So who would Atlanta have drafted 3rd overall? Well, looking way, way back when, to 2008, Zac Bogosian. Zac Bogosian, at the time he was drafted, there was a lot of hype around him. That draft, honestly, I'd say the top 5 out of the 08 draft, there was a lot of hype around him, who's going to go where and what might happen. And for Bogosian, who's had a long career, he's had a fruitful career in that he's won himself, is it 2 Stanley Cups in Tampa or 1? Either way, he does have a cup ring, so he doesn't care where he is on my board because he's got a cup ring to look at. But he has not become that top 4 defenseman. He's had periods where he's been in the top 4 for whatever team he's been with, but he's really bounced around. So for Bogosian, yeah, I'm gonna put him at 13, and that's one of those rare times I get to put an Atlanta magnet on the board. So if you're wondering, did Shannon plan this knowing that he'd have to use an Atlanta Thrashers magnet? Well, yeah. So number 12 on the list is, going back to 2005. He's had a long career. He's still kicking. He's still playing. Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson, who's now a member of the Blackhawks, who, of course, the Blackhawks have a guy in here who's now in Montreal. Anyways, Jack Johnson, drafted by Carolina in 2005. He's had a long career. He's bounced around the league himself. At some point, there's a journeyman video with Jack Johnson's name on it. But yeah, I mean, he's carved out a decent career. At times he's been overpaid, at times underpaid. But yeah, I put him at 12. Good career, not great, that kind of thing. Number 11. And this is one I had a hard time choosing, really honestly, between Jack Johnson and this player. So if you want to make the argument that Branson belongs below him, you absolutely can. I won't stop you. Eric Branson, I put at 11. He was a number 3 draft pick of the Florida Panthers back in 2010. And at the time he was traded to Vancouver, there were some that said, hey, Vancouver's getting themselves a great defenseman. It did not work out in Vancouver. Branson, also a player who's bounced around the league quite a bit. What is it with number 3 draft picks? So Galchenyuk bounces around. Doc hasn't yet, but he's with his second team. Kyniemi's with his second team. Bogosian, Johnson, Branson have all been through numerous teams in their careers. So something with number 3 draft picks, I guess. Number 10 overall. And odds are this one's going to move up at some point too. I still think the potential's there. I know, overly optimistic and all that stuff, because it is the 2015 draft where Dylan Strome gets taken 3rd, and so 7 years out from his draft year, what we've seen is what we're going to get with Dylan Strome in all likelihood. But yeah, decent enough player. We'll see how he performs this year now that he has moved on and found himself new surroundings, and we'll see how things turn out. Right, he did well enough for Chicago. We'll see if that continues this coming season, now after moving to another team. And so, yeah, Strome, 2015 considered a very good draft. I've done the redraft of 2015, and yeah, it was pretty good. Number 9, another Arizona Coyote. And this is why I had to do a video today on Kyle Turris, who was drafted 3rd overall in 2007. Because I thought if I do a video where I talk about number 3 draft picks, somebody will say in the comments, didn't you know Turris is retired? Why haven't you done a career video yet? So that we've done the career video, and now we mentioned Turris. And I was kind of torn on where to put Turris on the board because he's out now, right? So I debated about dropping him down, and I thought, well, he had some good seasons in Ottawa. The first season in Nashville wasn't a disaster by any stretch. And so, yeah, I end up putting him at 9th. I knew he wasn't going to be on this side of the board. I knew he'd be on this side, and I opted for 9th. Because I feel like the multiple 20-goal seasons that Turris had in Ottawa, to me, rank him ahead of the guys on this side. Although if you want to put Strome ahead of him, or Branson, or even Johnson for the length of his career, go for it, sure. Number 8, another one I had a hard time with. For Tampa, no, don't get his name wrong. Do not get his name wrong. Don't do it. Jonathan Drouin, who was drafted in 2013. Drouin is a tough one to rank because he's been injured so much. Drouin, the potential was there, excellent player, but injured so much and has had so many problems staying healthy that it's almost impossible to get an accurate read. I felt like he belonged on this side of the board. But again, if you want to make an argument he belongs on this side because of all the injuries and because of the missed time, I'd have a hard time arguing against that. So again, when I do these, it's not an exact science. It's just sort of a, yeah, sure. Number 7. All right. This one was kind of tough too because I do think the sky's the limit for this guy. I know that when I was talking about breakthrough players and I didn't mention him, there were some that were upset. I think Tim Stützle, who was the number 3 pick in 2020, has arrived already. He had a very good year for Ottawa. This is why I didn't really pick him as a breakthrough candidate because I thought, well, he's already done it. He's already broken through. But yeah, Stützle, the points potential is higher than what we've seen so far in the NHL. I'm looking forward to seeing him reach that potential over the next few years. I like the player a lot. I'm already willing to put him ahead of the other guys on the board, even though his career's been shorter. So, again, somebody wants to say, well, not really. Totally understandable. You guys can let me know your rankings and everything in the comments. All fair and all that. But I have Stützle at number 7. Number 6, from 2016... PierreLuc Dubois, number 6, from Columbus, and drafted by Columbus and then traded to Winnipeg. And Not likely to stay in Winnipeg for that long. But I like Dubois. I know people often just point at points, right? Points and goals. Well, points and goals, well, with a player like Dubois, that's part of the measure, but it's not all of the measure of the player. So for me, Dubois had a solid career. I think there's still some upside there. I do feel like he's a player that if he's happy and he's content with where he is, he will play much better than if he's not. Some players can get out on the ice and kind of push that stuff away. It feels like with Dubois, there's more of an effect that has on him than it may for some other players. But we'll see. Dubois, I have it number 6. Number 5. So we're getting into the ones that, pretty good careers overall. Looking back to 2009. Drafted 3rd overall by the Colorado Avalanche, Matt Duchene. So drafted in the same position as Kyle Turris 2 years later. So there's another tie-in to the Kyle Turris career video I did today. Matt Duchene, excellent season with Nashville. He needs to have back-to-back years like that, though. That's been the problem for him. He has not been able to have those back-to-back seasons at that top level. And if he can do that for Nashville, great. It should keep them in the playoffs and make them somewhat dangerous come playoff time if they can stay healthy. But yeah, for Duchene, the consistency hasn't been where we'd like it to be. Internationally, he's played very well as well. But for Duchene, I have him at 5th overall. Number 4. This one wasn't easy either. So from Dallas, Miro Heiskanen. Miro Heiskanen, again, if you just want to talk about pure points, you may not be overwhelmed with his stats, but as an overall defenseman, Heiskanen's fantastic, and he's just going to get better as he gets older. So number 3 pick back in 2017. Dallas quite happy with Heiskanen, and Heiskanen signing that long-term contract with Dallas last year tells you he's happy with them too. So it's a mutually beneficial arrangement and relationship. And I think Heiskanen's the best defenseman Dallas has had in some time. Heiskanen, I would say, that could be a list I could do at some point, top 10 defensemen for teams in their existence. That wouldn't cause any arguments at all. But yeah, Heiskanen at number 4. Number 3, from 2006. Yep, Chicago's on the board twice. Now, Jonathan Taves would have been number 2 on this list a year ago. Jonathan Taves, with his 3 cup rings, will be number 1 on some lists that will be posted in the comments. And I get it. Jonathan Taves, captain for the Hawks, and has had a nice long career. Those 3 cup rings look great and everything. And he was part of this Chicago rebuild that worked. And so Chicago and LA are the teams that I see cited most regularly when it comes to how to do the rebuild right. Taves and Kane, of course, a huge part of that. Taves, of course, Kane, of course, a number 1 draft pick. I'm taking Taves at 3rd, and I know people are going to argue about taking him at 3rd. I don't think it's the guy at 1 that people are going to argue with me about. I think it's the guy who's at 2. And I did go back and forth on it. Jonathan Huberdeau. So a couple years ago, I talked about how it felt like Barkov wasn't as underrated as he had been in previous years. That Sasha Barkov had gone from being an underrated player to being pretty well renowned, and I think people understood just how good he was. Jonathan Huberdeau is now another example of that. A player who a year ago was seen as being underrated, and now with the big contract he just signed in Calgary and the expectations there, Huberdeau, after setting a record for left wingers in a season in the NHL, it just feels like Huberdeau's really committed to his own. Again, if you want to take the success that Taves and the Hawks have had and put Taves at 2nd, I'm not going to try to argue otherwise. For me personally, I'm going with Huberdeau at 2nd. And again, it's a personal preference thing. So I would put Huberdeau at 2nd. I think he's going to have a good year for Calgary. Does he reach 115 points? Probably not. Does he reach 100? He absolutely could. He absolutely could hit 100. So at number 1, and again, I really don't anticipate there being a lot of argument on this one, but there will be some that say Taves belongs at number 1 because, and point to the 3 cups in 6 years. But I'm going with Leon Draisaitl, the number 3 pick from 2014, who over the last couple of years, his scoring has completely exploded. A contract signed by Peter Chiarelli that people scratched their heads about when it was signed at the time. Nobody's scratching their heads about that contract now. Draisaitl, if anything, is a bargain, and has become one of the best forwards in the game, and really gives Edmonton a two-headed beast there between McDavid and Draisaitl. So yeah, that's pretty good. And of course, McDavid ranked really high with the number 1 draft picks. Here's Draisaitl ranking really high at number 1 on the number 3 overall draft picks. So there you go. It really is basically personal preference. You guys can let me know in the comment section below how you would rate them, because that's the fun of it, right? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. That being said, I know people are going to think there's some wrong answers, and that's how it works. That's how the internet works. Anyways, there you go. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.